third encore with Dan Kurtz, SEO expert. And if you're a local business owner, you're going to want to watch the recording of this probably multiple times, because it's all about how to get your website optimized so that you can outrank your competition, get all of those leads, phone calls, and eventually customers for your local business. It's going to be really good. And I'm curious here, how many of you are local business owners? Give me a little chat about like maybe one sentence of what you do, and we can maybe cater some of the examples over to what your local business is. Sweet. Okay, so we got like real estate, insurance, marketing agencies, lead gen, and this is one of the more interesting ones I've ever heard of, is wheelchair accessibility vehicles. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's a
sweet.
That's a good one.
Yeah, insurance, real estate seems to be in marketing agencies seems to be like the majority, and we got some edges here as well.
All right.
So you want to give us a little outline of what we're going to learn today?
Sure. So we're going to go through a bunch of different stuff, going through how to do the research, how to plug it into Jarvis, how to go about writing your content, a little bit about that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because we kind of did it when I did my initial presentation, but this will be just kind of a refresher of the new tools that we have. Going through that, how to utilize Surfer for the SEO content. If you don't have Surfer, I highly recommend you grab it. It's in the Conversion.ai control panel for $1. So I would go grab that over there. And then we're going to go through what a site looks like, proper site structure for local business, and then some of the additional stuff you can do SEO wise to get your stuff to pop to the top.
Like that. Hey guys, in the chat, can you see Dan's face and can you see my face? Because it seems like only some people can. People are saying they see both. I would recommend, if you can't see us, that you refresh your page, and then you should be able to get good audio and visuals here. But in the meantime, we're going to hop into the training. So I will be on the sideline moderating. If you've been here, then you know how this rolls. You can ask questions in the comments. If you're watching the replay, there's going to be a thread in the Facebook group that you can also ask comments to. So just look it up. And with that, let's roll into it. Dan, the stage is yours.
All right, cool. Well, I'm just going to get Conversion fired up over here, and then I'll start sharing my screen. We're going to do it to it. All right, guys. So we're going to jump in here. Give me 1 sec to get my screen over. Share screen. And we're going to do that one. All right, cool. Well, I have no idea if my screen is sharing or not because I only see a pink dot for my face. Up there.
Not yet, bud. There it is. Okay.
Haha, success. All right, cool. So we're going to start off with one of the topics that people were talking about in the chat. Out of the three that Austin told me seemed to be the most popular, we're going to do, let's do real estate. So for real estate, let's say we want to do a sub-market like foreclosure, something like that. So I would go initially, first thing you do for market research before you even build your website is figure out what keywords you're going to write about and figure out what that content is worth to you. This is the most important part of the process. Excuse me, because at that point you can determine clicks, search volume, user intent, traffic. Not all keywords are created equal. And I say that as lovingly as possible. Google is a decision engine. And as you guys know from using Jarvis and stuff like that, there's the framework of AIDA, which is awareness, interest, decision, and action taking. Google works very much the same way. So you have keywords that fit into those layers, and it's up to you to figure out where those keywords are. Are they asking a general question? Are they asking a very specific question? So for example, let's say we're talking about, I don't know, Nike shoes. So somebody might type in, where can I buy Nike shoes? And then like a Google map result will pop up, a couple of websites, probably Nike.com, Amazon, Zappos, like those types of companies will pop up because they put in the time and the effort to do it. So that's one example of like a shorter version of a keyword where somebody's kind of just like aware of your product. And then towards the decision-making and action-taking portion at the bottom of the AIDA funnel, somebody might be typing in something like, I am looking for Nike running shoes in size 13 for men in the color orange. and Google will go ahead and populate. That's a very, very specific keyword. Now, you might not want to go after that because it is so specific, but keep in mind that that keyword might only get like 10 or 20 searches a month, but the search intent, the commercial intent of that keyword is very, very specific to that product. We've mentioned Nike running shoes for men in size 11 that are orange. If that doesn't weed out 98% of what's on the internet and you find exactly what you're looking for, chances are that that person's going to buy. So that's two different examples of how to kind of use AIDA to your advantage, at least from looking at it as a sales funnel perspective, not necessarily as a marketing tool. So keep that in mind when you're looking for keywords and stuff. So I'm going to show you two different keyword tools. If you have Surfer, this should be kind of rudimentary for you guys. If you don't, again, I highly recommend you grab it. It's only $1 through Conversion.ai. Go into your dashboard, go find it. It's well worth the investment if you plan on doing any sort of content writing and you want to get people to your website. It's fantastic. And I believe they just added a tool this past week where they integrate with, I think, with Conversion.ai, if I'm not mistaken, Austin. And they go ahead and they pull and create an automated content brief that you can then throw into Jarvis. So that gives you even more data that you can play with just to start with. And then you can take Jarvis, use the long form editor like I've got here on the screen, and continue to roll through that. So you've got a ton of options, but we're going to start kind of at the beginning, doing keyword research. And let's just open this one. So I'm just going to do buying a foreclosed home, because we were talking about real estate stuff. So this is a predetermined thing that I had already put in. But you can see the examples I'm going through, like these are the keywords that I'm going to be focused on specifically for my content. And you can see on average searches per month over here. So what I would do with these is grab those, hit the export button. And I'm doing this kind of backwards to how you guys would normally use Jarvis, but I'll show you why in a minute because it's very important. So let me go ahead, shorten this up. I'm doing this backwards and doing the keyword research first. Well, for me, I'm doing it frontwards. You guys are used to being inside of Conversion. So I'm doing this keyword research first, then go ahead, open the content editor, create a document with all the keywords in it. And then from there, open that content editor function inside of Jarvis. So I'm kind of going 1, 2, 3, as opposed to going 1, 2, 3, if that makes sense. I'm kind of doing it in like a reverse order, but it'll make sense once I finish and I'll show you guys. So we get our keywords, I come over here, do the content editor. Cool. So what I did for this was I took all the keywords on this page, all of these, took them from the Excel sheet that I had downloaded, copied them line by line, and put them right here. So in content editor, you have the choice of putting in like keyword 1 and getting a content editor with NLP, or you could do, multiple keywords. And then you'll see over here on the side, you get an option. Do you want to make 3 separate content editor projects, or do you want to do one project using 3 keywords? And I always pick the second one because what that's doing is, in this previous step, I've done my keyword research, I've pulled it in. At this point, I now have the keywords that I specifically want to focus on for that one blog post. Pull them in over here and then tell Surfer, okay, cool. I want to write about this content, but I want all of these keywords taken into account when you go figure out what I need to rank. This way, instead of doing one keyword at a time, you now have a batch of keywords or a bulk of keywords that you can focus on with one article. And that'll normally give you dozens or even hundreds of combinations of keywords, because the verbiage and stuff that you use in the article, based on what we pull through Surfer, is going to give you all of the data that you're looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up just so you can kind of see what, and then I'll hop over to Jarvis. We'll go in and do it live. Continue. Yeah, see, this is the new brief tool that they're talking about. Okay, so.
And I just did a poll, and about half the audience does not yet have a Surfer account. And so maybe you need to pre-frame like what Surfer does. Sure. Because we did a deep integration with these guys last month, and a lot of Conversion.ai users that focus on SEO use the Surfer integration, but maybe you want to go into detail on how you use it as an SEO expert.
Sure, I'll show you. So I just opened the content that I want to start off with. Now I'm doing it here in Surfer first to show you guys, how to set it all up. This is the new feature that they added over here, this brief button. So if I go over here, I should be able to create basically off of this. Where did they stick it? Come on. Okay, well, it's not doing it. And I think my computer locked up on me. Anyway, all right, I'm going to wait for this to cool off and figure out what it's got to do. Oh, there it goes. Cool. All right, so what I'm looking at in here, so for those of you uninitiated with Server, this is basically how it works. It's taken all the keywords that I was looking for, like you can see them up here. They're the same as they were on this page. And it's figured out across the internet what people are using in order to rank, or what content Google is looking for in order to show up in search for those queries. So these are common phrases that are throughout the articles, or common keywords. So, and then you'll see next to them, there's a number 0 out of 9 to 14. So in an average article, this is being used 9 to 14 times. Foreclosure properties being used once or twice, real estate agents 5 to 10, blah, 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 all the way down the page. It also pulls in headings that people are using. So these are common phrases inside of headings that people are putting on the page, like your H1s, H2s, H3s. And then you have your NLP keywords, and that doesn't mean it's not a sales thing. Inside of Surfer, this is natural language processing. So it goes through and figures out what Google is reading as far as its bot is concerned, taking those into account, and then giving you a full list here. And this list, in this case, because of the way that I set up this account, is pretty much the NLP, the 72, all keywords 80. Those 72 are included in the all. But basically what Surfer does is, if you want to do anything online as far as content marketing and content optimization for people to find you, Surfer is probably going to be your best friend. So this will give you enough information for how to write your blogs, how to put your content together, anywhere that you're publishing online that isn't a closed network like Facebook or any of the social media platforms. Those are all what we call in SEO like closed loop platforms. You have to have a login in order to get in and interact. It's not a website that's freely searchable or findable on the internet, things like that. So this content could be posted to your site, or you can post it. Let's say you did this as a blog post on your site. And one of the things I brought up in the last training was automating posting using a program called If This Then That. You could connect a whole bunch of blogs and other websites to your site, and then every time you make a blog post, it would be shared out to those sites so that you don't have to do content marketing yourself. And that also helps in building backlinks for those who do know SEO a little bit. They're not super huge quality links because, again, you're just starting out, but they are links nonetheless. So they do have some weight in Google. But basically, Surfer and Jarvis, as Austin was saying, play together really well. They do a fantastic job. There's a tab inside of the long form editor, which we'll go to here in a second, that does a bang up job of showing you guys exactly how to do this. So I'm just going to hop over here and do that. So first keyword. All right. So we're writing a blog post about buying closed home, and we like the pros and cons of doing so in the current economy. You can see I'm instead of telling Jarvis kind of a ton of stuff about what I want to do, I'm just kind of giving him just a very short snippet bullet point of what I want. Like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we're doing it about. And here's what I want you to take into consideration when you're looking at this stuff. So that's just kind of how I use Jarvis, is kind of like, hey, just want to let you know we're writing this. This is what it is. Kind of filling out like the who, what, where, when, why with Jarvis, and then kind of letting him interpret and do what he does best with that data. And I can change this up later, but this is just to get started. So we would take buying foreclosed home. those a shot. Do one of those. Cool. That reads how I want it. Pros and cons of buying a foreclosed home, how the current economy affects it. Let Jarvis write an intro paragraph. That's a good one. And you can see I'm kind of not putting a whole lot of time into going through the initial steps with Jarvis, just kind of banging it out and getting to this page because this is where I can start doing a lot of stuff. So that's kind of how I treat that first page, is like get the information in, see what I can get for minimum viable product, because this is where I'm going to be spending most of my time. This is where I'm going to really polish up and make the content that Jarvis is going to write shine. So we do that. And then here, if you have Surfer connected to your conversion account, you'll have this SEO mode button here in the middle. So you just open that up and it'll go ahead and ask you what content you want to connect it to. So this is going to go through the API via Surfer, go back to Surfer, contact your account, and then figure out which content brief you want to write about. So it's going to pull back all of my recent articles here. So we're going to do that one. All right, cool. So that's my score so far. I'll probably beef this up a little bit. This is almost like cheating, but not really. I'll show you. So you put this in here. Do an H1 real quick. And that'll help pump up the score here. See, just by putting an H1 in, you're almost to the middle ground. But when using Surfer, these are the kind of things that they're looking for. So this is average word count for content like this that people are trying to rank. Normally 49 paragraphs minimum, 20 to 32 headings, 2 to 6 images. You're not going to put images in Jarvis. It'll screw things up. So don't do that. Just kind of get the content fleshed out, go from there. And then you can see once you're done with it, what it looks like. So another thing about Surfer, just real quick up here, if you go to this button, it'll go ahead and pull in what Surfer went and looked up to figure out all of the values that you see here on this page. So it'll show you all of the different websites. And this is kind of what popped up earlier that I closed. So who's in position 1 for that keyword, what the competition is, what they do, and then which ones Surfer took into account based on the quality of the content. You can see some of these are turned off. Surfer determined that these were not necessarily what we wanted to focus on, so it simply turned them off, so they weren't taken into consideration. You can go in, check the article out, and if it makes sense to you, flip it on. And then it'll take that into account, recalculate the page, and help you write your content. So that's kind of how Surfer works in the back end of Conversion.ai. So from here,
sweet. And you would use this strategy not just for blog posts, but for your homepage, right? And you would use all of these to structure your headings and your descriptions and your FAQ, but pulling here from what Jarvis has written.
Absolutely. So that being said, probably a perfect time to segue from this, because you guys are familiar enough with the long form editor, I feel, that I don't have to go through a whole demo of optimizing this. Am I correct on that, Austin? I don't want to waste anybody's time and kind of like cut right to the meat.
Definitely want you to cut to the meat, but maybe just 1 minute, 2 minute punch onto talking about that, because there's other trainings about how to use Surfer. We have 2 already uploaded, one with Dave, one with the founder of Surfer.
Yeah.
So I think that they can go back and watch those, but let's focus here on the SEO stuff.
Perfect. So for this, let's do blog post outline. Get that out. Title. Let's go with this first one. Looks good. So for this, set it up with the pound symbols for each one of these, or hashtags, whatever you prefer.
All right, so by doing the hashtags, what that means is it tells Jarvis and Surfer that that's a H2. And so it just helps you structure it and read it in the right way.
Yeah. Awesome. So I would just go hit compose, not doing anything too crazy here, just kind of letting Jarvis doing what he does.
Basically, those hashtags stop Jarvis from looking above them. It's kind of like a stopgap. So Jarvis is reading only the pros of buying a foreclosed home and working its way down. So that way you can get it to be a little bit more concise on building a paragraph rather than doing more bullet points or more headings like that. Little trick to know.
Yeah. So I'm just continuing where Jarvis left off. As you can see, pros of buying a home, he went and started literally just making bullet points with different things that he wanted to take into consideration. So I'm just going to kind of clean up and finish where he kind of left off. So the idea behind doing this, okay, cool. So the idea behind doing this is that Jarvis gives me enough information where I can kind of play Mad Libs a little bit, and I can fill in the blanks and say and then kind of lead him on. The next time I hit the generate button, he kind of picks up where I left off. So it's kind of this going back and forth, and we're riffing between each other. I put in enough information that gives him an idea of where I want him to go, and then he'll take the information and kind of run with it for a little bit. And I'll go back and spot check and see what he did, and then just kind of, edit or tweak, and that's later on. But just so you guys can see kind of how that works. Yep. And just like that, because I finished off that sentence, he went ahead and picked up right off with another bullet point just by reading back on the previous text and pulling in more stuff for this article. And just for sake of demonstration, I'm going to stop him there. Okay. Pull this up a little bit. And most of the stuff I'm doing right now is just basic formatting. So when it comes to using the H tags, because I've seen in the chat there's been confusion about how the H tags are supposed to be used. If you're using a content management system like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal or any of the ones where it's just a super simple back end and you're not hand coding anything, chances are the blog post title is already your H1. So I'm just putting this in here because this is the title of my blog. Anything inside of your article as like a main talking point should be an H2. Anything that's a sub point of that talking point should be an H3. Anything below H3, you don't really need to worry about too much. H4 through H6 is like if you're getting into like minute details, and we're not doing that. We're not writing a 10,000 word power post. We're writing, 2,500 word regular posts that should rank for a couple hundred keywords. So that's kind of how you would use the SEO stuff. As far as weighting factors, some people say that using bold or italics or underline affects it. I haven't seen it. That hasn't been relevant in years. It's really, at this point, it's about writing good content that answers the questions that people are asking online about certain keywords and answering them as completely as possible. I said on the last presentation, I'm pretty sure I said on the one before that, but Google is an answer engine. It's not a search engine. They started off as searches and all that sort of stuff. But if you can help Google to terminate a search, then you've done your job, and they will reward you with traffic and rankings and potentially sales. The whole point of Google having a search engine is to terminate search and to help them to serve Google ads. That's the only reason it exists, because that's their moneymaker. So if you can help them provide a great experience to their users, they're going to reward you in return. So that's kind of how SEO works a little bit. So that's why if you want to get serious about it, you want to have a bunch of traffic and you want to be number one in your space, looking at a tool like Surfer to integrate into Conversion is definitely worth your time.
Yep, and this is really good from what I've heard is for FAQs specifically. Yeah. Like if you do, if you write out the most common question and then you write out a really good answer filled with the right keywords and reads like natural language and actually solves the problem, then you'll likely be the featured snippet on Google and will lead a ton of traffic to your site.
So I'm going to do that as an example. I'm going to grab this keyword down here from Surfer, how to buy a foreclosed home. I'm just going to come over here, put that there. Well, maybe that.
And you could even use the Quora response on this one, the that template.
Absolutely. So I do something like that. This would be an H2. So I can go over here, get the Quora template.
So these templates are all trained on specific use cases, which is maybe better than using the long form editor for if you have like a really specific goal. You're not just trying to write long form content. This is about, you know, giving very good, intelligent answers for tough questions.
So you can see I had started to write an information for the answer because it said started off with something. So I did, and then I just kind of stopped at the comma, and I want to see what Jarvis does with this as far as answering.
And, you know, I think it's important to note that out of these, you know, you might want to add your own opinion because Jarvis is pulling the opinions of pretty much like the broad internet, right? It's read all of these articles, all of these blog posts, ebooks, stuff like that, public access information on the internet, Wikipedia articles. And so maybe Jarvis will contain some opinions that you don't believe in or some facts that you want to fact check. But it's all going to be original content. So you don't have to worry about it duplicating or pulling from any specific source. That's why you don't have to do citations. But you want to make sure that, you know, you do some proofreading here.
Right, exactly. So I'm just going to flip back to Surfer really quick and see how we're looking so far. So wait for this to load up. Come on, Surfer. Oh, there it goes. I was going to say that would suck if it broke down in the middle of me giving a presentation. Yeah, so it is still recalculating because I'm at 550 words and it's only seeing 95. So it'll take a little bit for it to do stuff. Let me see if doing that. There we go. Yeah, sometimes you just got to give it a little kick in the pants. So if you're flipping back and forth between tabs, just add or delete a period or add a space or something, and Surfer will go, oh, crap, I need to update, and just do its thing. So you could see up here when I started talking about buying a foreclosed home, you know, the pros of buying a foreclosed home, it'd start to fill that out, and you'll see some of these have now turned green, some are yellow. And I have done no actual optimization of my own yet. So I'm starting to see, as you know, and as I go writing through this, you know, based on the different topics and stuff, these will start to be fleshed out a little bit better. But again, we're going for 2,600 words. This is so far as 560. So we're not really making any massive headway at this point. But just to give you an idea of how it works, this is what you would do. You flip back and forth either between power mode and SEO mode, or just straight up just use long form in the SEO mode. If you don't need any of the additional stuff and you just want to get the meat and potatoes of your article done first, stick in SEO mode, just run the long form editor until it's done. And then go back later, flip to power mode, and then use any of the different tools and stuff to embellish and make the article more creative or help it to write in your voice a little bit better.
And since we're dealing here, focusing in the local markets and not just, you know, global or you know, nationwide, how would you adapt some of this stuff in including your cities or neighboring cities to nail that local traffic?
So I'll show you guys a live example of a site that I've built, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Okay, so it's not in the real estate niche, so we're switching gears a little bit here, but just stick with me because the concept and the content is exactly the same. And I'll show you. So I'm going to just flip over to this real quick. So this is a pest control site that I had put together. It's super, super simple, basic, rudimentary, whatever you want to call it, because the only purpose of the site is to generate either form fill leads or phone call leads. It's not a corporate site. It's not a branded site. It doesn't serve a purpose other than for me to generate leads for pest control in the county that I live, and then have those leads be sold off to individual pest control companies. That's it. Kind of a lead brokering deal. So I picked a city kind of in the middle of the county, which is Kansas City. Built out a whole thing. You can see this is some of the SEO stuff. So if you're squeamish around bugs, I'm sorry about the images. But all of the content that's in here is for specific things. So you'll see like the local phone number that I have for call tracking. You'll see the city and state here. Another mention of city, state. Another mention of the city, breaking down the individual services. So this kind of goes back to a little bit what we were talking about last week with Google My Business. For those of you that didn't see it, I'll give you a really short rundown of that. The super condensed version is if you're not using Google My Business in your local business, you should. You can put in your content, your services, hours of operation, reviews, all that sort of stuff. And that ties into how Google wants you to structure your website. So think of it this way. Looking at a Google My Business, they have the services page. They have a place where you can list your products, what they are, how much they cost, all of that sort of stuff. If you structure your website in the same fashion, then you're doing the work twice, essentially, which doesn't make sense. But Google knows that if this business has Google My Business and they both look identical, like you both have services pages, or you're an e-com store and you both have products pages, and they both line up with the GMB almost exactly, Google knows that, and it's going to give you more credit for having both of them on the same page, literally. So that'll help as well. So you'll see, I'll go through some of these different types.
That was a great training you did, by the way. I would recommend anybody that hasn't already watched that Google My Business training that they go and check that out, because this training that you're watching now paired with that one is a real 1-2 punch.
Yeah, it'll make things super easy. So, and you'll see in here for like SEO purposes, I've got a video that we've created, and then I've got these other areas near the city. So here's all the local cities. And if you go to any of these pages, I'll show you. So like, let's say we want to go to South Pasadena because somebody lives in South Pasadena. That'll load up a page which looks exactly like the page you were just on. In fact, the only thing on this page that changed is some of the verbiage here and the cities and states. That's it. So this is a super easy way to use Jarvis. And the way that I'm doing this is something that in the web development space, some people call it short codes. If you're using WordPress, if you're old school, before any of that stuff existed, think of this as doing mail merge in Microsoft Word. So you go in, you can put your placeholders in Microsoft Word for like name, phone number. It's how they send out like bulk mailers from like the 90s and early 2000s. They would have like your name, address, phone number, make it look like it was personalized to you, all that sort of stuff. That's how they did it, was using like a mail merge type thing. This is the same thing. So I've taken the content inside Jarvis, wrote it, optimized it, created a few variations of it that I allow the website to pick from when it goes to build the pages, and then just simply have these placeholders here for city, state, county, all that sort of stuff. And you can see it's the exact same page. The only thing that's really been changed out is the cities and locations. From an SEO perspective, though, if you wanted to go under the hood, this is where a lot of the magic happens. So I'm just going to pull the source code here for this page real quick. Excuse me. And then let me see if I can get, here we go, schema. So if I could get everything on this page to word wrap, I would feel a lot better. Line wrap, there we go. Cool. So what I'm pulling up here, okay, so schema is Basically, it's contextual markup for Google to understand what a page is about. And there's a bunch of code in here, and you'll see some regular sentences and stuff put throughout. But basically what this does is it tells Google, okay, what are you, who are you, and what do you do? So you'll see there's different stuff up here, like this is for United States, working in South Pasadena, Florida for emergency pest control. There's all sorts of different things in here, like latitude and longitude. Those are actually in here as well. What country we serve, what the content is about, where the address is. Here's a list of different cities that we serve in the area, what currencies we accept. All this information tells Google exactly what your business is and what they do. So if you don't know schema, I highly recommend you look into it. If you do know schema, make sure you're executing it properly. That's really all I can say on it. I prefer to use JSON LD. There's a couple different types of schema, but the one I use is JSON LD for a lot of my stuff. So go take a look at that. There's different web resources and stuff on how to set them up properly. And then you'll see stuff throughout here as well. Like I've got the schema for the blog, for the specific blog post that I've got, for different site menu options, all these different things. But the more you can tell Google in schema markup about your business, the better chance you have of showing up, because schema is a nice way of writing all the information that you wrote for people specifically for search engines to digest and categorize your stuff. Think of it as like old school going to the library when they used to have the card catalog full of stuff, like using the Dewey Decimal System. And it was like, here's everything in the 100 section, the 200 section, like that type of stuff. That's what it is. And you pull out the card and it's got like author, book, year published, what aisle it's in, what row it's on, all that sort of stuff. You're helping Google to cubbyhole and categorize your business where you think it fits best on the internet based on your content. So if you can do that for Google and you can say, oh, cool, by the way, I already have the filing cabinet Post-it note that you wanted already written up. So all you've got to do is just put this in the spot that you know it belongs. And then
is there a tool that would make it easy to do this? Because like, I feel like it's a little complicated here. If they're on WordPress or if they're, on Wix or Squarespace or,
yes. So
mostly local business owners are not that technical. So what would be like an easy way to do this?
So there are a couple different ways to do it. If you're on WordPress, you can use Rank Math to do it. There's a bunch of stuff that's already built in for that. So for local business stuff, you can actually put in name, address, phone number, and all that. Put that in the footer of your website so it shows up on every page. And chances are, if your content on your website is optimized using Surfer, your business will start to show up in the right-hand column, like that little knowledge graph that pops up for local businesses and stuff. So like if I were to do, I don't know, let's say pest control, St. Petersburg, Florida. It should come up with a Google map, and sometimes, depending on the business, so these are Google ads, sometimes this right-hand block over here, this empty space right now, will show up with a preferred business based on how well you've optimized your content. So thinking about that from a city perspective, you have the Google ads and all that sort of stuff. But then if somebody searches, you would have this featured block that normally shows up over here, all to yourself. And then based on what we taught last time about the Google My Business stuff, you could have your GMB listed in here. So these are all just different ways that you can do the same thing. But so for Rank Math for WordPress, there are free schema builders online where you can just kind of plug in your data, like what's the name of your business, what location, all that sort of stuff. I'll get a link for you guys and I'll post it in the replay for this video or on the YouTube or in the Conversion.ai group about tools. If you guys have questions, I'll more than happy to answer them later after we hop off here.
Cool. Two more questions here. So when you duplicated that content, but kind of personalized it for every local city, does that duplicated content actually conflict with each other, or does that hurt your ranking at all?
So here's the trick. Duplicate content does affect you if it's on the same site. But the way that I use Jarvis when I'm doing this is I'm using something, it's kind of a more advanced tactic, but it's something called spin tax. And what that means is I have multiple variations of the same sentence or the same paragraph that are all blocked out. So what'll happen is the way that I build my sites is it will randomly pick the phrases that I wanted to string together to make a cohesive paragraph. So like you guys looking at this page, if I go back up here and go to, okay, so any apartment or house, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go ahead and open the home page in a different tab and put them side by side, and I'll show you how it works.
Could you use just the content improver or rephrase within Jarvis to
and that's exactly what I do. Yep. So that's what I do. So I'll do it for a particular sentence or paragraph or whatever. I'll have Jarvis rephrase it about 10 times. And then I will using syntax markup, which is just brackets and pipes. So for the first variation, you put a curly brace at the beginning of it, and then you put the first paragraph, and at the end of that paragraph, you put a pipe, and then you put the next paragraph. So what'll happen is this tells the program or WordPress or whatever to randomly pick one of these 10 paragraphs to use on the page. So like you'll see, if I go down the page, South Pasadena versus Kansas City, this is rewritten from this page, and then same thing down here. You see they're slightly different. If I put them side by side like that, they're slightly different, but it's enough to be unique enough that Google doesn't care. So it's still completely optimized, but I'm using different variations of the same sentences or paragraphs to kind of get the information across. So it's just enough of a variant that Google doesn't really care. So they kind of let me do what I want. And in doing it this way, it actually gives you more control, and you can get out more pages and more sites faster by using syntax. And you can use, there's a tool like Spin Rewriter is a good one for doing this kind of stuff. That's the one I use. I think it's like $70 for the year. But basically, you put your content in, it'll go ahead using their AI to figure out how to put in different synonyms and stuff based on the context of your content, and then create multiple variations. So I'll use Jarvis, go ahead and create like 10 variations of this paragraph. And then I'll go to Spin Rewriter and tell it, okay, now I need you to mash them all together into one giant super paragraph. So it'll go and do that. And then I can take that code and kind of drop it here in the site. And then every time a page gets created, it'll create a new version of this paragraph.
All right. So I'm going to speak on behalf of the less technical people like I am. I'm the CMO in a tech startup. So I'm not like the one that's very technically savvy. So what I would personally do, and let me know if I'm just totally, off the ball on this, is I would maybe go a little bit more manual and not use all like the fancy tools for rewriting and like the technical code. And I would just go in and copy a paragraph that I've like kind of written pretty well that has this stuff, put it into Jarvis, rewrite it, and then just do that every single time I create a new page.
Correct. Absolutely. I like to go,
rather than automatically creating like 10 pages, using like the syntax stuff, I would just go in and like, hey, here's my 10 pages for the 10 cities I'm trying to go for, copy and paste into Jarvis, have Jarvis rewrite it, make it, you can even change the tone of voice. So you could say, you could use the content improver template, which is one of the most popular templates. Put tone of voice being like, I don't know. I saw one recently, somebody put Billy Mays. I thought it was a pretty interesting one because Billy Mays has so much great content on for sales. And doing Billy Mays' voice, and then you could go and put it in Dave Chappelle's voice, and you could whatever. Right? So you could do it in all these different voices, and that way it's unique and different. Or you could just always do informative. But as long as you're getting uniquely different approaches for each paragraph, that still is keyword nice. Maybe still have surfer up, so which keywords to improve there. Because the surfer and Jarvis integration, you'll be able to see like what you should add and remove. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, totally. If you didn't want to learn all the technical stuff, that is exactly how I would do it, Austin. I usually like to take it at least a little bit above to show like there's still room to grow. Like there's always, because I'm a big fan of, and kind of what I've talked about before in the group is that Jarvis is kind of the cornerstone of your marketing. Is that you can use Jarvis for your emails, your copy, your blog posts, your videos, whatever. And then there are additional tools that you can either purchase or go find online that you can then take that content and just repurpose the ever living daylights out of. And then you have a full tilt marketing company going, like for example, Daniel Vega doing what he does with the thing with Jarvis. And now he's got 20 writers or something like that he's just going crazy. But Jarvis is the cornerstone of that process. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys. Is like there are additional technologies along the way that as you start to grow, and if you do get serious about doing SEO at a local level, or you're running a lead gen business, whatever, there's always something else that you can add to it. And I wanted to just kind of give you guys a little peek, just a little bit like reading a chapter ahead, but like we're not going to go to quantum physics yet, but here's kind of what it looks like. So that's kind of how that works. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how the pages work for a local lead gen site. And then the other part of it, because about, I would say 70 to 80% of doing SEO is getting your site correct. So getting the on page correct, getting the content correct, Surfer and Jarvis will help you with that. Rank Math will kind of give you a bit of grief. So don't always listen to Rank Math. Surfer knows a lot better than Rank Math does. But Surfer adds a lot of cool technical stuff to make your site work really well. So the way that SEO works is the main portion of the stuff is your on-page stuff and your content. So the on-page is kind of like I showed with the schema, how your website is structured, how your links play with each other, all of that sort of stuff on the site, more of the technical plus content. And then there's the off-site stuff. So that would be things like getting backlinks to your site, people, linking to you from social, any of that sort of stuff. So there's a couple different ways you can do that and kind of do it automated. And I think I talked about this on the last presentation, is you can use if this then that, which is ifttt.com. And you can hook up a number of different websites or blogs or whatever to your existing website. So you can use pretty much anything. And have it when you post a new piece of content on your website that it goes and it hits social media, or it goes to Facebook, or it goes to wherever. If you post videos, you can have it go from YouTube to your blog. If you're posting blog posts, you can have your blog go to 20 or 30 other sites. It just really depends on how you want to set it up for your business. But this is a free tool. I think they have a paid option as well, where you can set up as many of these as you want. And basically every time you push publish on your website or publish on YouTube, depending on what you're using as your content source, like if you're using Jarvis just to make YouTube videos, it'll still work the same. So you can have it where YouTube is the hub kind of what you're doing. And then you can have that video pushed out to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and your blogger site and medium.com and a whole bunch of other things that are all automated. So go check this out if you want to make a bunch of links to your website without doing a whole lot of work. It's great for beginners. It doesn't take much to set it up. Literally just provide logins and passwords and hit start. There's no coding required. It's super easy. That's the easiest way to start getting links to your site. If you wanted to go a layer deeper, what I would recommend is BuzzSumo. And I know I talked about this previously on a different one. But you put in your content or the keyword that you want to go after into the search bar.
Subdomains, or to use folders for each landing page. And I noticed, I think I saw it was in a folder where you had it like company name /near-me. And then you did the page within that folder of near me.
Yep. So that's, the way I have it set up is this is just a URL structure. So near me is the overarching container for all the cities. And then whatever the city is will always be after the slash. Because they kind of know the way that I'm doing it is structuring it, because the way I have the domain set up is literally keyword plus the county. So Google knows by reading that, oh, it's about pest control. And then, of course, all the other on-page stuff that I've done. Oh, this is about pest control in this particular county. And then anybody searching for near them, and then whatever the city is.
Brilliant. Sweet. And then would you put that at all like in the navigation or in the footer? Or, do you think this is, it'd be best to just have them all as these a la carte pages where they don't connect to each other?
So the trick is the way that I set it up is that they do all connect to each other. So I haven't changed the site up yet, but the area serve button will be changed to actually have a page where it just shows a list of all the cities. But if you go to the bottom of this page, the way that I did it is based on the actual radius from this current city. So South Pasadena, and here's a list of all the other cities that are within 5-10 miles of that city. So like Gulfport, you can see across the bay. Over here, you've got Kenwood, St. Pete Beach. So it's doing it in these little radius for each page. So it figures out based on where I'm starting and then what related cities are around it. So like it's highlighted South Pasadena, so like Treasure Island's over here. So Treasure Island shows up there. And that's just kind of how I structure it. So the way that it works is Google comes to the site and it starts crawling the page, and then it sees all of these related cities. And then it goes to, let's say, the Treasure Island page and finds all of those related cities. So it's these little overlapping radius bubbles all around my service area.
This reminds me of our friends over at lawnstarter.com. You should, pull up their site right now. They've done a brilliant job at kind of like finding a lawn care business, a lawn care for your lawn, into like a SaaS where you have like an app and you don't know who like the vendor is. It feels like they could just kind of show up. It's a subscription. But I noticed at the bottom, and these guys have like optimized their site like crazy. So go down here to the bottom and you can see all of their popular locations. And we actually did a whole interview. We have I don't know if we don't really talk about it much, but we have like a pretty great podcast called Scale or Die. And we have a whole episode with the founder of Lawn Starter here on their conversion and SEO strategy.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing with this particular site, just at a smaller level, because this is very much a Home Advisor or Angie's List approach. If you go to either of those sites, you'll see the exact same thing at the bottom of the page. And they do it for every one of their service categories. So the amount of web time that they have to spend developing their sites is immense. But it's the same function here. Is all these pages link to each other because these are the popular cities, and they're doing this in order to get links from the home page to these pages and vice versa. It helps them with internal site linking structure, which kind of helps Google to determine what's important to who, which is why these high population cities are priority on the bottom of the page.
Great.
And then what I was talking about before we jumped over to Lawn Starter is, yes, I agree, foreclosure. The other way to get links is by doing good old-fashioned outreach. It takes a little bit longer as opposed to using if this then that. But you can go to BuzzSumo, and I believe if it pulls up, and this is just my internet, guys. This isn't any of the tools that we've talked about today. It's just my computer's acting up again. So, like, let's say, for example, I was writing the foreclosure article earlier, not to bounce around too much, but I was writing that. Here's an article about foreclosure from the White House, or let's do Blavity, because NBC and White House are super high-powered sites. There's no way we're going to get links from any of them. But over here, this little, where it says upgrade to access, these two paper clips hooked together, you can actually get a list of all the sites that are linking to this page. And then you can simply write them an email using Jarvis and say, hey, I just wrote an article about the same thing, blah, 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 blah. I feel that it is better, or it's more updated for 2021. Here's all the extra information that I put in. Would you mind changing your links on your website to my page, which is located at thisurl.com? Thanks. And you send out a couple of those, and a couple will change them, a couple won't, a couple will tell you to bug off, whatever. Doesn't make a difference, but it's a more old school way to get links, but some of the links have a lot of relevancy and authority to them. I don't want to dive too much into link building because that's an entirely different thing that has nothing to do with Jarvis. But just at like a precursory level, doing link building, you can use either IFTTT, or if you want to spend the time and do your due diligence, you can do outreach via email by going in BuzzSumo and rewriting one of these articles with Jarvis and Surfer.
Sweet. That's cool. So along with this training, we'll have resources in the replay, next to the replay. Mm-hmm. And we can we can add these links to the tools that Dan uses for ranking, and that'll be, I think, helpful for everyone to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up here, what's the timeline on you're creating a course
Yes.
on this, and Miguel was curious when that is expected to be published.
So the lead gen course is a little ways off. I'm focusing on the content marketing course, specifically for the Conversion.ai community right now. So I want to get that out, kind of walk through multi-purposing everything, how to do video, how to do social, how to automate social for a full year with every piece of content that you put out. Things like that, repurposing into Kindle books, which I know kind of goes over some of what Darby does, but this is at a much, much lower level than the training that Darby does. But just kind of having one piece of content or multiple pieces of content and blasting it out across the entirety of the internet. So no matter what format somebody likes consuming content in, they can find your stuff. And it just helps them to come to your website, attract more business. And as you keep posting more and more, kind of using Jarvis and some of the other tools that I'm going to mention in that course to kind of turn you guys into a content powerhouse for your business and start acting and putting out content like $100 million brand. That's the whole purpose behind it.
Sweet. I love it. Okay, so action items for everyone. You got a lot of information today. Next steps in a clear order.
Sure.
Let me know if I'm out of order here, but I believe it should be, first, you need to do some research. What are the keywords and all that you do in Surfer? So you'll start in Surfer, figure out what you need to write about. Then you'll start in Jarvis, take all of those, put them in Jarvis, and you can start to build out the actual content going from awareness, interest, desire, and action for each local zip code community that you want your local business to serve. And once you kind of have like the contents there, then you can start building your website around that, adding in images and call to actions and design, brand, all of that.
Right. Absolutely. And the way that you're going to do it, or the way that I prefer to do it, I'm not going to say the way you're going to do it because everybody has their own opinions on how they should do it. Go and do your research inside of Surfer. Do not use local terms. Don't put in your city. Don't put in your state. Because what I want you to do is go and find what the root keyword is. Like if you're doing pest control, put in pest control as the main keyword. Let Surfer tell you what else is coming up, because getting into those little pockets of cities and locations and stuff like that, the data that Google pulls back is not nearly as sufficient as the overall national stuff. So doing it at that large scale of just saying, hey, here's everything for pest control or everything for real estate and foreclosure at a national level, and then going in piece by piece and adding in your cities and states and localities, that'll give you a ton of data, a ton of keywords, and you'll probably outrank most of your competition because most local SEO guys go right for keyword plus city or keyword plus city state automatically. So doing it at that 30,000 foot level will give your business a much, much broader list of keywords that you could pull from, much more traffic to pull from, and then localizing it down for the area that you serve will help even more.
I love it. That's a really good tip. So after they have their research, they start designing it, they get it out there and live. They should also have the Google My Business, but which you would do the Google My Business first or the website first? I
would do the Google My Business first, because the reason I would say do it that way is because Google gives you very, very limited tools inside of Google My Business. You kind of have to play within their sandbox, but by playing within their sandbox, it'll also show you exactly what they're looking for. So by starting there and kind of reverse engineering it based on your Google My Business, like go all in on Google My Business for like a month or two, see how it does for your business, take the data and the information that you've learned and restructure your website. Do it the way that you learned how to do in Google My Business, because everything that they have in that tool is exactly what they're looking for from local businesses. And again, like I had mentioned earlier, if you can answer those questions, then Google will give you all the good graces in the world. So having the GMB and then having the relevant data and content in there, and then putting those two together will give you more of a local power punch than you know what to do with.
Sweet. Yeah. So then you apply those over here. I really don't think, with the help of Jarvis and these other tools that you've mentioned, I don't see how that should take you more than a week to really get this all set up.
No, not even.
Yeah, not even. Like, I think that you could probably power through. Today's Thursday. You could probably get it up by Sunday if you put in the effort. Put 4 hours dedicated, like just time box it, 4 hours for research and development on like keywords and all of that. Then write out the blog post or blog post style, all the content you need with Jarvis. That should take an hour. And then, maybe building out the website will be the harder part for you if you're not tech savvy. But still, I mean, you can use a WordPress template. I use Webflow. Squarespace and Wix are fine too. It's more about the content than it is about the actual like platform that you've built on.
Exactly. And if you want to get started on a super low budget, Google Drive has a free feature in it called Google Sites. You can set up a website on google.com and buy a domain from them, and you're good to go. So now imagine using Surfer optimized content from Jarvis and from Surfer and throwing it onto a website that technically Google owns and is hosting for you. And you can tie the GMB to it and all that other sort of stuff. Extra brownie points. You don't have to spend a ton of money on hosting or development or anything else. You're just simply posting content and images. Yep.
Brilliant, man. Well, before I let you go here, I want to tell everybody that there's a super exciting announcement on June 29th. So just make sure you add that to your calendar. The way that you can get on the RSVP list is go to Conversion.ai/launch. And if you go there, and I'll put it here in the chat, you'll just be asked to put your email in, and that'll just keep you up to date with our live event. If you thought our last one was big, when we announced we acquired Headline, how we talked about the long form editor release, and how we introduced Jarvis to the world, this is going to be in equal proportion. So come on out for that. A lot of exciting news. And if you are not in the Facebook group yet, join that too, and you'll see us talk about it a lot in there too.
Awesome.
Sweet, guys. Well, I'll be posting a post in the Facebook group to continue the conversation here. So if you have further questions for Dan, where can they reach out to you? But you can also reach out here on the post.
Yeah. So in the Conversion AI group or on Facebook, just find me, Dan Kurtz. And then I'm in the process of redoing my website. That's dankurtz.org.
I love it. Guys, thanks so much for attending us live. And the replay will be up later today in the Academy at Conversion.ai/Academy. Thanks for joining, y'all, and see you on the inside.